Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are around the world, and welcome back to Into the Deck. I am Manuel, your host as usual, and this time I'm joined by the one and only Joshua Bausch. Welcome.
Hello again.
My pleasure to have you here once again, Joshua.
Thank you.
Fantastic stuff. First of all, congratulations for your finish, top 16 at Grand Prix Brussels.
Thank you very much. Even though I think there would be a chance for more at this GP because, we will talk about the deck. But I think the deck was really good for this tournament, and I wish I would have made top 8. But top 16, many people are very happy about it. Normally, I'm happy about it as well. But this time, I was a little bit disappointed. But it's a great finish.
Of course, everybody wants actually to win the whole thing. Of course, that's the main goal. But your results have been really consistent in the last few months. I mean, if we look at the last 3 GPs, you were always there.
I was always in the top 16, yes.
Yeah, and that means that you're going to get there, in the top 8 and maybe even win a GP.
I'm chasing my second GP top 8 at the moment and hopefully a trophy.
Yes. Now you're going to get there. I'm pretty sure about that. So the deck you played at Grand Prix Brussels is indeed Dimir Inverter. So that's what we're going to talk about. We have your list right now on screen. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about how you prepared for the Grand Prix, flexi slots, your tuning process. Tell me a bit about those things.
It was like basically 2 days before the event. I saw Martin Jusa streaming Ubi Inverter, and he kind of crushed it. He kind of crushed the leagues. Didn't know what to do, just played it and won basically everything. Like, he started like 10-0 in 2 leagues, and in the end he was like, 21 or so before he submitted it for the PT. It's kind of insane what this deck what a result for this kind of newish deck no one knew about or no one tuned before. And so I thought, give it a try. And I just used the list that was online and made some couple of changes. I thought if we play the mirror with this new hot Tesh deck, then I need some mirror breakers or try to get an advantage in the longer games. And
So let's talk about those changes,
So at first I was like, I want 2 Heroes Downfall because I realized that if a Planeswalker resolved, you have a pretty hard time killing it. And Heroes Downfall is the best answer to it. There are cards like Murderous Rider as well. It's like basically creature and the Heroes Downfall effect, but usually the 2 life loss of the Swift End card is pretty huge and can make you lose games. And you usually want the card in your graveyard and rather not on an adventure. Because you play card like Dig Through Time. And cards in the graveyard matter there, so that you can cast Dig Through Time a little bit earlier. Normally 1 turn earlier then. So you go with Heroes Downfall. Usually I played 1, I played 2 because of the reasons I want to kill Planeswalkers if they resolve, and I want to catch all removal. There are, in Pioneer you have 2 mana removals, but they're all situational. You have cards like Ultimate Price, Cast Down, you can Trek to the Underworld, it's basically a 2 mana removal spell. You have Doomblade, but these all cards have restrictions to it. The one can't kill black creatures, the other one can't kill legendary creatures, the other one just monocolor creatures, and you have to basically evaluate what do you want to kill in which of the matchups. And so I went with Ultimate Price. I took priority in killing cards like Kalitas, Rankle, Glorybringer, these kinds of cards. That's why I went with Ultimate Price instead of Cast Down like most of the other persons did when they submitted a deck.
Okay.
Then, for me, what breaks the mirror, the first I thought, if you just exile your library and then basically try to cast another card the next turn, the best answer to the Inverter deck was, in my opinion, Hypno Rivulet. It's a land, can't get Thoughtseized, and mills 4 if you sacrifice a desert for just 2 mana and tap it. So basically it's a 3 mana spell that basically wins the game against Inverter or just hinders them. You play a land, sometimes costs 1 life to make blue mana, but in the end it never costs me a game, never hindered me. If it would be an island, would still be the same. But I had games won just by this card itself. You play it, your opponent, for example, plays the mirror, can't play his inverter on 4 because he would have died otherwise.
Yeah.
So has to make other play patterns, getting Jace on board first, but therefore you have Hero's Downfall or counter spells, for example. Just get rid of it, and then he can't play his inverter again because he would otherwise died.
Yeah, yeah. So you wanted basically to put an obstacle there, making sure that they actually divert to another strategy and be prepared for that other strategy as well.
Exactly.
So you put them in a path in which you can control.
For example, in my last round of the GP, round 15, I just had, I played a mirror, and my opponent said, yeah, Ibn Rivel won you the game. I never could set up my combo because I would have died otherwise. I would have just milled 4 and he was basically dead. In the end, it was like I had 2 Ibn Rivelates. We went with inverters, hitting and stuff. And he had to play his inverter. He had 8 cards in his library, and then I milled with 2 Ibn Rivelates, the last 8 cards, and he died in the following round.
Yeah.
So having this angle of attack kind of helps in the mirror.
Yeah.
But also, this card can help you as well. You can fill your graveyard for dig through time. You can mill your library. You put back with inverter if it's too big. Sometimes this happens in a mirror. With Jace, you get milled, and he draws the cards. Your graveyard gets too big. You can't exile everything with dig through time. So you have to adjust with that. And just milling your library and then play your Oracle, for example, wins the game as well.
Yeah, it's important actually to keep this in mind, that you can use it for yourself as well.
Exactly.
So it's a tool that goes in both directions, which is pretty handy. Any other changes that you did in the main deck that you want to talk about?
For the GP, I cutted the Drown in the Log. I played it. I won the last chance qualifier for PT Brussels as well. And there I played Drown in the Log, but this card never impressed me. Because we are in a world in Pioneer and not in Modern. In Modern, everybody plays fetch lands. So he fetched turn 1, fetch turn 2. The rare case is playing the shock lands itself. You have more fetch lands than shock lands. That's why in Modern the graveyard get filled pretty easily and pretty fast. In Pioneer, you have only Fable Passage.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. It's a land you really want to play on turn 1 or on turn 4. And having, not this self-filling graveyard interactions like in Modern, this card is often doesn't even counter a 2-drop or even a 3-drop like it usually does in Modern. And so I often has like, the only card I can kill would here the Stone Cold Serpent, but it said protected from multicolor.
Yeah.
So this card doesn't help me. Of course, you have these draws where you like turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Sensor into another Thougeize into Torn in the Log, for example. I had these games where on curve I was on the play and everything worked perfectly for my side. Then this card was fitting perfectly in the curve, but normally it doesn't, or never happened for me at least.
So you realize it's situational. That is the problem. So if all the elements, the sequence just unfolds perfectly, then amazing card. Otherwise, not so impressive.
I can see this card now when people play more the Lotus Breach deck because it mills itself or has more cards in the graveyard. This Drawn in the Log gets enabled pretty fast because if they play Lotus Field, they sacrifice 2 lands. There are 2 cards then right away in the graveyard. So you can counter the Hidden Strings or the Underworld Breach. Then it's possible. This card gets better in this matchup. But for Brussels, we didn't play that many Lotus Breach decks in the meta, or there weren't that many.
Yeah.
That was kind of the breakout deck the week after Brussels. So, for this, I didn't had the need to.
Yeah, back then.
Draw in the Log.
Yeah. Now you might consider playing it, or you still don't like the card enough.
Personally, I don't like the card.
Okay.
I would, if you go to a tournament and you think that the Lotus Breach deck is a pretty big part of the meta game, I would add 2 of them. For example, I had 2 Tyrants gone in this kind of slot now because I wanted more early interaction. And in the mirror sideboard games, I like Tyrants gone as well because it's a flexible card that can bounce your oracles back to your hand and is even a removal spell for the haymakers of your opponent's sideboard. And I had always the situation that I wanted to kill 3-drops. And Round the Lock never did this for me. So I went with Tyrants Gone. Killing the Rebel Master or Benanish Marshals was very important for me. So I went with Tyrants Gone instead of Drown in the Lock for the GP. And yeah, now for all the events I play online.
Yeah. Okay. So you were happy with the changes, I mean, in the GP,
Exactly,
the
yeah.
cards you chose, the cards you selected for the reasons you explained, turned out to be the right choices. And was the meta the way you expected it to be?
Yeah, in Brussels we had, there was not a defined meta game yet. That was the first tournament, the first big tournament on the same weekend we Kyoto. So no one knew what was the best deck. Sure, there were people, the pros, or had this kind of decks, for example, the Inverter deck. I was talking with some pros, testing teams that has this list like 1 week earlier, but when you're in the process of testing for a pro tour, no one makes a 5-0 on Magic Online. Everyone plays 4-0. Okay, that's enough. I drop the league so that my deck doesn't get published and people don't get the information.
Okay.
And we live normally in a world with public information. Everyone gets posted. Everyone talks about stuff. So it's really hard to not leak your information out to the world. But luckily we have Canister, who's like openly like plays his deck on stream, even though he was in one of the testing teams where they had this Inverter deck. He just I don't know, just play this deck in my Modern Challenge and in a Pioneer Challenge and win it, or just make top 8 with it. And so everybody knew about it, and more people played it at the week in Brussels.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Canister, for sharing the information.
Exactly, Canister.
All right, fantastic. So let's talk about a little bit about how to play the deck. I mean, what do you have to know? What are the important things, the key elements you have to keep in mind to play the deck the best you can?
Also usually the perfect curve for the Inverter deck is usually turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 another discard spell or removal spell, turn 3 another removal spell or discard spell, turn 4 Inverter, on turn 5 Jace or Oracle, you win the game basically. Against decks like Mono Red, perfectly doable, but if your opponent starts interacting with you, kinda gets hard. So you always want to set up a turn where you can play your Inverter and Oracle in the same turn, or set up a Jace beforehand and then play your Inverter. Because then you can just win on the same turn if you play Inverter. In some matchups where you don't expect any removal spells for your Inverter, you can just fill your graveyard with like 4, 5, 6 cards, play Inverter, and it's a 6/6 flyer. Normally no one can interact with it if they don't have any removal, and you just kill in like 3 to 4 turns. And I won games that way as well.
Yeah, you can be a sort of like control deck as well with a big
Exactly.
threat and just use that threat to win the game in the end.
Exactly.
It's a possibility.
Exactly. You have some counter spells, you have discard spells, you have removal spells, and you have card drawing engines, so you can play the controlled game. In some sideboarded games, if people bought in cards like Unmoored Ego, for example, they will exile your Inverter, it's your best creature in the deck, and then you're basically a blue-black control deck with some random 2-drops in it. For example, Tassa's Oracle.
Yeah, Tassa's Oracle, yeah.
And you have to control it out of the game. There, you start I always start milling myself because I have more control over my library than over the library of my opponent. And I usually win faster that way if I mill myself.
Okay, how do you win when Inverted is not there in the deck anymore?
You win with Jace or Tassa's Oracle.
Okay.
It just takes more time because you will always mill yourself, and at some point you gather Devotion, have like 4 cards in your library, you still play your Tassa's Oracle, 5 Devotion, 4 Tassa's Oracle, and win basically the game.
Okay.
Takes longer, it's a more controlling game and not like snap with the finger, I win. but perfectly works.
Yeah. Let's talk about Tassa's Oracle, because I mean, it's a way condition. We just discussed that right now. But are there situations in which you play it just because you want to actually have a look at those cards and set, I don't know, do some, say, shenanigans to prepare for the later game?
Of course, if you play it on most of the time, you play it on turn 2 because usually you want it to die, that you can shuffle it back with Inverter and draw it later. Then in your like basically Doomsday pile, I always call it Doomsday because you shuffle 5 cards in. You can't rearrange them as you wish, but usually it's like the perfect 5 or perfect 3 cards left in your library, and you look for cards, for example, for Inverter, for Dig Through Time, for lands, for example, and the Tassa's Oracle is the best 2-drop against aggro decks. I play it always against mono red, mono black aggro because it's perfectly blocks.
All right. I remember you tweeting about the Finnish top 16 that you were a little bit disappointed, as explained before. And I remember actually that you felt like in a couple of rounds that you could have won these games, but you didn't.
Exactly.
So what are the lessons that you learned actually from these losses? What were the interactions or whatever you missed?
I played against a pretty fast mono red aggro deck with... we went a little bit bigger after sideboards, but still played Embercleave. And it was basically the last turn. I cast Dig for Time, I had 4 mana left, I had a Fatal Push and Hero's Downfall in my hand, and he had Monastery Swift Spear and 2 Rekindling Phoenix. I was at 11, and he just played his 5th land. So he wanted to attack, I let him attack, and that was the mistake I did. Because I have to cast my removal spells for sure this game. Why should I let him attack? This way, Embercleave gets just cheaper. And therefore, I was at 11, he had like 9 damage on the battlefield, he played Lightning Strike. I had to kill 1 Rekindling Phoenix with Hero's Downfall, and then he just played Embercleave for his last 3 mana. And it wouldn't have happened if I just Fatal Pushed, Hero's Downfall, your turn. I won the game, basically, then afterwards, because he couldn't have killed me otherwise.
Right. So very important to be aware of Embercleave.
Exactly.
And the mana
the last
cost,
turn,
the whole thing.
Why wait? Even though it's an instant, you have to kill it. Why let him attack? And that was the mistake.
Before combat, just kill the creature.
Exactly.
Dealt, and then Embercleave is more expensive.
Exactly.
Okay. That's good insights, I mean, to keep in mind, absolutely. Anything else of the sort that you would like to mention? Things that you learned, being there on the field?
It's like, be aware of people having Hypno Rivulet. For example, the Lotus Breach decks has the Fae of Wishes. They have Tome Scour in their sideboard for their combo, and it's basically Hypno Rivulet for their 1 mana spells. So keep that in mind, that if they have 5 mana, they can just Fae of Wishes the spell and just mill you out, for example. Try to get your choked estuary down as far as possible. So basically keep more of your basic lands in hand and play the other lands before, because of the possibility of drawing choked estuary. Opt, for example, even though it's an instant, play it in your main phase when you don't have any counter spells or hold open anything. You maybe find the cards you wanted to find and can still play them in the main field, for example, for lands. If you need lands, don't wait until your opponent's turn to play your opt. Play opt in your turn, that you make your land drop, for example. Very important. You want to sometimes go up to 6 lands and hopefully have just 2 swamps, all islands. If you basically fetch an island, you will need more islands than swamps in this deck. Yeah.
All right. So playing opt always at the end of your opponent's turn in the end step, this kind of idea like this, okay, this is the way it's done. It's not actually true.
Exactly.
So this could be actually, let's say, considered a mistake. So are there other common mistakes that people make with this deck?
Usually, don't mill yourself with Jace, I would say, in this kind of deck. I usually mill my opponent if they're not basically a graveyard synergy Dredge, for example. then I always want to mill my opponent, because you want to have your graveyard as small as possible. The only difference would make if you have Dick Through Time in your hand. If you have Dick Through Time, you want to mill yourself, because Dick Through Time gets cheaper, but you don't want to over mill your graveyard so that Dick Through Time just delves 6 cards, and if you have like 8, 9, 10 cards in your graveyard, even Dick Through Time can't handle it. So keep in mind, don't get your graveyard that big, that Dick Through Time can't handle exiling all the cards from your graveyard, and that you still have an easy win if you have Inverter plus Oracle, for example.
Okay, very, very important, absolutely. If you were to play the deck now, like there is a Grand Prix tomorrow, would you play the same list you played in Grand Prix Brussels?
For me, it's the main deck I would play the same right now, even though I would expect more Lotus Breach, and I could change the Draw and the Lock back, but as I said before, I personally don't like the card, and for me it's too narrow and just good in one matchup. Therefore, I would have liked other removal spells or other counter spells in the sideboard. That's why I wouldn't change back to it, but I would change my sideboard accordingly to going into this GP I would play then this weekend.
Okay, so what would be the cards that they would change? Let's have a look at this new sideboard.
Exactly, I would change my threat base. Before I play Thief of Sanity, 2 Jays, 1 Ashiok Nightmare Weaver. Herefore, I would change to just 1 Jays, even though I liked it. Milling, putting cards in your graveyard, looting away dead cards, for example, excessive lands, for example, and flashbacking, for example. Discard spell was always nice, but you don't have a lot of space in the sideboard if you just want to change or expect a new meta. Therefore, I cutted 1 Jace and I added 3 Pack Rat. Pack Rat was a threat of choice even in Brussels, because it's a non-blue threat. Usually you fight with Mystical Dispute out of the sideboard, and having a threat that's blue, usually the Mystic Disputes cost just 1 mana, and sometimes it doesn't resolve because of that. Pack Rat goes just under it. If you play Pack Rat, you need to play a lot more Pack Rats. Therefore, I played 3. Some played 4, but I would never go under 3, because they get better in multiples. So if you throw 2, they get better. If you throw 3, they get better. So yeah, I would go with Pack Rat going forward.
Okay, so as said before, the main deck stays the same, and you want to have this new sideboard with the Pack Rat. The other cards, actually, I think you added as well Damping Sphere, is that correct?
Yes, Damping Sphere, you need cards against Lotus Breach. It's probably better than Grafdigger's Cage, because sometimes the graveyard interaction doesn't matter. I have other cards that interact with the graveyard. That's why I go with 2 Damping Sphere. And the card I added, last but not least, is Leyline of the Void.
Yeah.
Because it's very good against the Lotus Breach, handles the Breach side of the combo, and it's also good against the Sultai Delirium strategy. If they don't cast Uro from their graveyard, I think this deck is not the threat anymore. They have cards like Nissa, who shakes the world in their deck, but if it comes to that, you can assemble your combo pretty well. I still have the 3 Mystical Dispute, because it's the best counterspell. All the good decks right now in Pioneer Blue, basically. And having a 1 mana counterspell for that, it's the most efficient way. I still go with 2 Legion's End, because of there is still mono black aggro and still the Ensoul Artifact decks.
Yeah.
And if you want to get rid of an Ensouled Darkseid Citadel, Legion's End is the way to go.
Yes, absolutely. And you do want to get rid of that Citadel. All right.
Ultimate Prize is, as I mentioned before, the 2 mana removal spell that kills the creatures I want to kill the most. And therefore, I'll go with that instead of Cast On, for example.
All right. Joshua, thank you very much. This was a really nice conversation, very interesting. I mean, this deck is still very popular, so it makes total sense talking about it. So thank you once again for joining me here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. And a big thank you to all of you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing this video on Twitter, Facebook, any other platform of your choice. It will help us to keep on doing what we do. All right, everybody. Have a great time casting your favorite spells. And for now, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.